Hey friends, welcome back to another video. My name's Emma LaFave and fall is finally upon us. It is my favorite season, so we are going to paint my favorite fall item, which is a pumpkin. We might paint a bunch of pumpkins. I haven't decided yet, but I love painting them. They're super easy, super fun, so let's jump in and get started. Okay friends, so today we're going to be painting some pumpkins. I have many videos on this, but you know what? It's that time of year and I love painting pumpkins, so I thought I'd share with you my favorite thing to paint during fall. So if you haven't seen any of my pumpkin videos, this will be great for you, and if you have, this is going to be a great and simple refresher. They are so much easier than you think, so let's dive right in and start. So what I'm thinking is I'm just going to fill this page with like different shaped pumpkins, and doing this kind of exercise is really great because it gives you time to experiment with different colors, mixing, also different shapes and sizes, seeing what you like, seeing what you don't like. So if you're learning how to paint something new, or if you want to kind of perfect a style, this is a really great exercise to do, is just paint the same thing over and over and over and over. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm using my size 10 round brush to start, and I have my Paul Rubens watercolor paper here and my Paul Rubens paints. So let's jump in. Let's start with a simple orange pumpkin, go traditional, and then we'll see where it takes us. So I'm going to make it just a little bit of a lighter wash. So I put some orange on my brush and then I just rinsed a little bit of it off so I can get a lighter wash of it. Always start lighter than darker. So the first thing you're going to do, and these are for loose pumpkins, we can make some that are a little bit more detailed, but to start we're just going to go loose. The first thing you want to do is paint an oval shape. Now, one of the greatest things about painting these loose pumpkins is that it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to create a perfect oval. They can be a little bit wonky, a little bit, you know, bumpy and lumpy, and that's totally fine because pumpkins they're not all perfect. Okay, so then once you have your first oval here, you're going to do a C curve. So you're just going to create the letter C around each side of the pumpkin. Now, you don't want to make it the same height on both the top and bottom. You want to start a little bit higher, and then you're going to finish a little bit higher up than the bottom here. Okay, so this one is going to be lower, and this one's going to be higher. And I like to leave a little bit of a white space for that kind of crease in the pumpkin, like so. So it starts higher and ends higher. Okay, then we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Now, I said leave a little bit of white space, but you can see here I left some white space, but there's also, you know, it's touching in some areas, and that's okay too. It doesn't have to be a consistent white space throughout the whole section. You know, they can touch a little bit, they can bleed into each other a little bit. It's okay. Okay, so once you have your C curves, you're going to do it again. So we're going to do another one again, starting higher and finishing higher than the previous one. Okay. That, and then the other side. And see here at the top I'm leaving space for a stem. Now if you kind of go over this spot a little bit, it's okay because our stem is going to be brown anyway. You can paint brown easily over the orange and it's not going to really affect the color. But I do like to leave a little bit of space for that. Okay, so here's our pumpkin. It's looking a little flat. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to wet up each section again. I went a little bit darker than I kind of wish I did. I would start even lighter next time. We'll try that. But what I want to do now is I want to grab a darker orange, so maybe more orange pigment. You can even grab a little bit of like a burnt sienna, a brown, and I'm going to kind of tap it into the bottom and the top of each section. And that's going to be kind of like our shadows for the orange, or for the pumpkin, for the pumpkin. Okay, so here's the bottom and the top, and then I'm just going to start bringing it just a little line to separate each of those little creases a bit. Just a little line, like so. Okay? And it just also gives it a little bit more depth to it. And then if you want to go even darker with some of the shadows, you can grab a bit more brown. Maybe I'll grab a bit darker of a brown and just tap just a little bit, just for a little bit more darkness. Like so. Just at the top and bottom. okay? Or even you can go a little bit around. Then if you want, while it's still wet, you can grab your darker brown and you can do just kind of like a little curvy stem. I'm gonna take some of that color off just a little bit, just so it's not so dark, and it can be kind of jagged, like so. Super, super easy pumpkin, okay? And if you wanted to, for fun, you know, grab some green and have kind of like the vine coming off of it. You can do these little squiggles, maybe grab a big leaf that's kind of attached, like so. It doesn't even have to be like a perfect leaf shape, like that, and you're good. You can deepen that with a little bit of more darker green at the stem of the leaf, or like where it kind of connects, like so. And there you go. You have like a perfect, simple pumpkin. All right. Now, as we know, pumpkins don't only come in the color orange. We have white pumpkins. We have kind of like blue pumpkins. We have greenish pumpkins. We have spotted pumpkins. We have tons of different pumpkins. So I thought maybe we'll do another kind of color. Let's do a white one, because white objects, just painting them in general, is a little bit tricky. So I thought we'd do that. Now, if you've seen any of my videos before where I've talked about painting white objects, you will know that no white object is just white. Like this paper is white, but it has a gray undertone to it. Or depending on the light, it could have some sort of maybe blue undertone to it, a purple, a brown, a yellow. It depends on where you kind of want to go with it. So you choose. I think I'm going to do kind of like a light grayish brown for mine, which is kind of perfect because my water is already dirty. So giving it kind of that dirty, muddy look will help a bit. I'm going to take just a little bit of black and put it in my palette here, just a tiny bit. So you get this really, really light wash of black, which is gray. You can add a tiny bit of brown to it. And I mean, it's like small amounts. It does not, you don't have to add a lot of paint, like the smallest amount. You always want to go lighter than darker. And I'm going to use some water, and we're going to do the same thing. Let's try and do a different shaped pumpkin, okay? We don't want to make it completely perfect by any means. We just want to, you know, have fun with it. So make it a little bit more kind of lumpy, okay? Here's our first oval. Now see how light that is? Once it dries, it is going to come off a little bit darker. I feel like sometimes people are scared to go lighter than they think they need because they're afraid we won't see it. But it's always better to start off lighter and then start off darker, and then you can't make it lighter. So there's our first oval, second oval, again leaving some white space, and always starting higher and coming up a little bit higher than the base of that first oval. This one's a little bit lumpier. I'm going to grab a little bit more color, making it lumpy like that. And here. Last one. Okay, it's touching some of the previous little sections, and then you do get some of that white space. It's totally up to you. I like to leave a little bit of white space, but also have it touching. Okay, so that's pretty light. Can't really see it completely. So you're going to add a slightly darker value of your color. So I'm going to just, again, touch my black really, really gently, maybe touch a little bit of the brown really gently. And I can see right here, it's pretty dark. We don't need it that dark, so I'm just going to rinse my brush off in the water just a little bit, and you can always tap it on your paper towel to see the color. And I'm just gonna tap it into the top and the bottom of my pumpkin. Now I just added a lot of water, so I'm just trying to move that water throughout so it doesn't pool all in one spot. I feel like it needs a bit more color. Okay, and essentially we're just creating a really light brownish pumpkin, but it's going to appear to be white because of how light we're doing it. Okay, so I'm just at the top and bottom. I feel like I should have made it a little bit, I should have wet up the whole thing a little bit more. It's kind of dry, so the water I was putting down was just pooling in one area. A little bit more brown to it. Okay, that's a little bit dark, but I'm just going to try and move this dark brown around those sections. You really, especially beginners, you really only need like the smallest amount of paint on your brush. And I think that's a really tricky skill to kind of develop, how much paint, how much water. But it will come with time and practice. You'll kind of just get a feel for it after a while. So don't get frustrated if you feel like you're using too much paint, too much water. Try it again. Try and use like the most small amount of paint that you can, just to see how that feels. And then I feel like you'll get it once you just keep practicing. Okay, so I'm just going around like so, like that. Now, if you want to deepen it a little bit, you can grab a little bit more color, just a tiny bit. I'm going to tap it on my paper towel just to see the color, take it all off a little bit. And actually, you know what? I'm going to grab a bit more brown. I'm going to do the stem, and then that will kind of bleed into some of the sections as well. And that will help define it. Just going to have this curly kind of stem there. Like that. And there's our white pumpkin. Look how cute. I love it. I love it. It's like a rustic kind of pumpkin. And I'm just taking the tiniest amount. And my paper is still pretty wet. That's why it's blending in. If you find that you're creating these little lines and they're a little bit sharper than you'd like, you can always wait till it fully dries. Add your little lines for shadows, and then just take a wash and dry off your brush and just kind of blend it out a bit. Like I'll show you here. With our brown one, or our orange one. Okay, if you are doing the little lines around, seeing how it's really sharp, and you don't necessarily want that, then wash and dry off your brush, like that, and then just kind of blend it out. Make sure you don't have a lot of water on your brush, that it's gonna re-wet everything and just make funky marks, okay? Again, you'll get used to it the more you practice. I'm just gonna make it a little bit more connected down here. Grab a little bit of my brown, like so. Let's put some leaves on this white pumpkin too. I like the leaves. You know what? And because this is a white pumpkin, we can have the leaf right over top, because you can kind of layer right on top of that white pumpkin without and making it look weird. Like that. I love it. I love painting pumpkins. It's my favorite. I take October very seriously in my house. I love it. Okay, there's our white pumpkin. And if you need to add more shadows later, you know what, I might come back in and just deepen this a little bit. So I'll show you if you feel like your shadows aren't, as stand out as you'd like them to be. Okay, let's do another pumpkin. I love those like kind of sagey bluish green pumpkins. So let's create that color. So I kind of want to make like a greenish blue color. So I'm going to take this dark green here, like that. Then I'm going to grab a little bit of purple, like a dark purple, and you get this kind of like gray color. And you can even grab a tiny bit of blue, just a tiny bit. Okay. And we're going to do a pumpkin in this color. I'm just going to take some of that pigment off of my brush. And we're going to do the same thing. Let's do like a taller pumpkin. Okay, so here's our color. Again, always starting lighter. Okay, so we're going to do a long oval. So I'm going to show you how different shapes can still look like pumpkins. We got our C curve, again, starting a little bit higher. Like that. Okay, touching in some areas just so it's not completely separated with white space. And another one. I mean, you can make them as wide as you want to. If you don't like doing just like 5 little sections and you want to do more, you can totally do that. Maybe we'll do that for the next one. Okay, this one's more of a tall blue pumpkin. I love these ones. Okay, so now I'm just going to re-wet the whole thing so I can add in my darker color just to make sure that it will bleed properly. Now I'm going to grab in some more color, tap at the top and the bottom of each section. Might need to mix more of this color to make it darker. Green, purple, tiny bit of blue. Okay. And you can go around the sections, create those lines. Like so. Okay. I'm just going to wash off my brush, dry it a bit. I'm just going to blend this out because I added a bit too much there. Just going to deepen some of the ones at the top. Maybe a little bit more purple, a little bit more green, just darken it just a little bit more. Like that. Now I'm going to grab some brown, my dark brown for the stem. Oops. Mixed it with the green. That was brown there. Like that. Grab my stem. Like so. And then our leaves. I'm going to have it a little bit more. That. Maybe one kind of coming up behind here. Why not? Can blend in a little bit. See, mine's bleeding into the pumpkin. I'm fine with it. Totally up to you. Okay. A little bit of darker green. See how mine like totally bled into there? It depends on if you want it to look a little bit more loose like that. Up to you. Okay, but there are some different ways to do the pumpkins. Now, if you wanted to do one with like more sections, a little bit smaller, we can do that too. So let's just do one more. Let's make it smaller and kind of flatter, like those little ones. So starting off with orange and just a little bit. Hold on. Let's make it thinner because we're going to have more sections. Like that. And again, you're just doing the same thing. You're just doing little C curves, going around. And these ones are going to start higher the more sections you have. You might even see some of the sections behind. We can just go over this with brown after. I'm just doing like a little triangle kind of thing. Let's grab more color. Again, at the top and bottom. And then around the sections. Now this is really tiny. I don't know why I decided to do it so tiny. But it doesn't have to be completely, you know, perfect. Oh, actually, you know what? I want to do one more after this. Actually, let's do a gourd beside this one. I'm going to let that... Actually, no. I'm going to grab a little bit of, whoops, brown. Just tap it in there. I'm going to do the stem after. Just adding in my brown like that. While it's still wet, let's do like one of those gourds. I don't even know what they're called. Or they're kind of like, yeah, like a big bulb at the bottom. Just going with a little bit of a green here. I'm going to fill it in with a light green. I'm going to add some orange in there. Or are they like the light green and the dark green? I can't remember. Either way. Like that. I'm going to grab some olive green. I tap it in there. I think the top is like a yellow orange or something. Just tapping it in for a bit of texture. You know, those things are really bumpy and kind of weird looking. I'm going to grab like a yellow like this. Just also kind of tap it into the top. Maybe a darker green. Tap it. Tap some of the green on the yellow. And because it's wet, we're still getting these kind of blooms. They're not sharp little lines, right? Maybe get a little bit of this dark color and just make it a little bit darker there. Okay, let's leave that. Let's do, okay, I'm going to point something out. Looking at this pumpkin, because this was still a little bit wet, and then I did the stem and it bled, there was more water here and paint, and it bled into the pumpkin. That's what's causing this kind of weird mark. That doesn't bother me. If it bothers you, you could always just wet your brush just a little bit, kind of just blend it down. If you want, you can take up some of that color like that and then create your pumpkin color again and just lightly go over the area if you want. It's totally up to you. That kind of stuff doesn't really bother me too much, but if you don't want it completely loose like that, I totally get it. A little bit more purple to it and just kind of reshade it. And it kind of works, right? Okay, let's do one more big pumpkin that's kind of like miscolored and warty, like that's just fun. Okay, so we're gonna start off, I'm gonna start off with a light wash of like this greeny purple mixture. It doesn't really matter because it's gonna be all funny looking anyway. And I'm just doing a really light wash, making it really kind of lumpy. Okay, again, really lumpy. We're going to create bumps on this thing. It's like a pumpkin that hasn't really turned. I know there's like different kinds of pumpkins. I don't know what they're called. I'm sure someone could let me know in the comments, but I hope you'll know what I'm talking about. They're like green and orange. It's like they haven't fully turned yet or something. Okay, so I'm just using this really light wash of green. Like that, and then I'm just going to grab whatever green I have in here and I'm just going to start kind of tapping it in, especially to the bottom. And this is what I love about wet on wet, is that you can just kind of tap this color in while the pumpkin's wet and it just kind of takes over and does its thing, you know? Grab a little bit of that darker green, just tap it in there. Like so. Get some of that orange. Tap the orange in the top a little bit. Maybe you can make like an extra bumpy. Just kind of wiggling the edges to make it look like it's one of those extra bumpy pumpkins. And I don't want too much orange. I'm gonna grab some dark green, a little bit of purple, and really darken it down here. Make some bumpy edges here. Like that. You can bring some of the darkness up here too. And you just kind of let the colors go together. And I might even just do like some dots while it's still wet and you'll get that textured kind of bumpy look. And we can do some while it's also dried to get a bit more of a defined bump to it. Okay, I'm gonna grab a bit more orange. Actually, a bit more like the burnt sienna. It's like an orangey brown. Just kind of add some dots. Like that. And then maybe a little bit of brown, like the darker brown. Adding some darker brown to the bottom here, and then let's add our stem. And then it can bleed into the pumpkin a little bit. Just have like little sticks or something coming off of it, I don't know. Like that. I feel like it needs some more darker green at the bottom. more green, more purple. Really deepen it down there. And I find these kind of pumpkins sometimes more fun to do just because it's so non-traditional and you can just let it be, you know, let it do its thing. Like that. Then we can take our green, do our little stem and leaves. Like that. And like that. And then I think that's it for this one. I'm just going to add a little bit more green down here. Okay, let's go back to this little pumpkin quickly. It's going to take a little bit of our brown here and just do our little stem. And see how the lack of white space in between has kind of lost a little bit of the separation. I'm just going to take a little bit more orange and just kind of add it. Now because it is already dried, you can see that these lines are very sharp. Now I kind of like the way this is looking. It's up to you whether you want to keep it like that or not. I kind of like it, but if you didn't, you would wash and dry off your brush like this and then just kind of blend it out so the lines aren't so harsh, but I kind of like that. I don't know. Now if you wanted to go back and add any, you know, detail, further detail, you can add a little bit more brown to some of the stems just to make it a little bit more, what's it called? Structured or detailed, totally up to you. But yeah, that's kind of it. Those are our pumpkins. Again, add more shadow if you want. If you do like this one and it's already dry, you would just add in your shadow color, wash off your brush, just rinse it off, dry it on your paper towel, and then you just kind of blend it out. See that? And then you get extra little bit of shadow in there that you might have lost as it kind of dried out. So you can always deepen it as much as you want. All right, and that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed painting these pumpkins with me. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything else you'd want to see. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I really hope you liked it and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on all my other platforms for tons more content. I'll see you guys later. Bye.